Hello, Mr. X. My name is Charles, and I've got a story to share with you and your dreamers. I'll get right into it. One night around 9 p.m. I was working on some improvements to my house, so I went outside to grab something from my truck which was parked by the road. I'm sure you know that when you live in a rural area, you don't usually get creeped out by dark woods. I live out in the boonies where we own most of the land around the house. So naturally, I was totally comfortable leaving the safety of my home and walking out into the near pitch-black darkness. As I closed the door to my truck, I noticed something strange in the woods across the road. It wasn't right up at the edge, but sort of deep into the trees, at least a few meters. The whole area is part of my property, so I could tell it was near the pond. There was a square-shaped light, sort of like someone set up an old tube television in the middle of the woods. I know it sounds bizarre, but the light seemed very focused. It didn't appear to bleed out or illuminate anything else. It was just a square of white light. I stood there trying my best to make sense of what I was looking at. I really can't put into words how odd and out of place it was. I couldn't figure it out, so I went to get my girlfriend to take a look at it. But by the time I got back with her in hand, the light had vanished. That's when I finally started getting a little creeped out. We went back inside to continue the project we were working on. About 10 minutes later, I went back out to the truck to grab something else from my toolbox when I heard this deep, guttural growling noise that made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. The sound was only about 50 feet away from my truck, not far from where I saw the light. I turned back to head towards the house, and I heard the noise again. That's when I bolted straight for my garage door. The growling intensified as I ran as fast as I could to get to the side door of my house. I didn't even have time to lock up my truck or my toolbox. I was absolutely terrified. The next day I spoke to a neighbor who lives up the road from me. She said she heard something on our porch that night and looked out the window. Apparently a huge black furry creature was digging through her trash. She said she got scared and closed her blinds until she heard it wander off. If anyone was wondering, there are definitely no bears around the area I live. I spoke to some friends later on who claimed that they were out late one night and saw a large black wolf cross the road in front of their car. Apparently they almost hit it. And I really don't want to believe this, but they said it appeared to be walking on its hind legs. I've done some research and have heard about stories where dogmen or werewolves have been seen after sightings of strange lights. Do you think that maybe the light I saw was some sort of gateway or portal? If so, a portal to where? Some other dimension? A gateway to hell itself? Who knows? Please let me know what you think, Mr. X. Thanks for listening. Sincerely, Charles. Dear Mr. X, my name is Eli. I'm a 45-year-old father, but this happened a long time ago, during the summer right after my last year of high school had ended. There were a lot of rainy nights that year, and I mean really heavy rain. But my family had big plans of spending the summer out on our farm in rural Snohomish, Washington. My best friend Garth was going to be there with us as well. We had 5 acres on a big hill, mostly used as pastures for our horses, sheep, and cows. When the rains came in, though, the hillside turned to muck, and the gravel road leading up to the house basically became a trap for any car that pulled onto it. Garth asked me to ride with him just in case he ended up getting stuck on the road. He said he didn't want to be a random black guy sleeping in his car in the middle of nowhere if he couldn't get out of a ditch. When my mom arrived on the property the day before, she got her truck stuck in the gravel muck pit pretty deep and had to walk the rest of the way. The road eventually got too bad to continue on, and we had to pull into a vacant parking lot down the hill. It was around 11 p.m. by the time the rain stopped pouring down. We'd been passing the time by eating snacks and talking about video games and generally being kids. Sleep was already creeping up on us, and being wrapped up in our own fleece blankets made things even worse. Knowing the road was likely still a huge, dangerous mess, we decided to give in to the sleep and get home in the morning. I woke up suddenly to a noise coming from outside the car. I felt a hint of fear setting in, but I quickly made the decision to nestle myself back into the blanket and go back to sleep. Maybe an hour or two later, still with no light other than the faint glow of the moon, I was once again jarred awake. But this time, by a cacophony that seized the most primal sections of my brain. I glanced over to Garth, and his skin was as pale as his dark complexion would possibly allow. The noises were still ringing in my ears when I asked him, "Did you hear that?" My voice was louder than I meant it to be. I saw him nod before we both began scrambling to get out of our blankets and check all the door locks. The noise seemed to get closer every split second, as if whatever was outside was violently lurching towards us from downhill. The sound, it was awful. The voice, if I could call it that, appeared to modulate between highs and lows. It cackled and yelped in a way that I struggled to comprehend, making it impossible to compare to anything I know. Coyotes, dogs, raccoons, possums, and all manner of livestock. I'm familiar with them all, and this was none of them. Garth fumbled with his keys to turn on the car, while my eyes were locked on the dark tree line. Like something out of a horror movie, the car whined with every turn of the key, not wanting to start. The sound of the engine rumbling was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever heard when it finally decided to start. The road leading up to my house was still too bad to cross, so we ended up continuing into town where there were lights. We parked in front of my grandparents' bed and breakfast and stayed there shaken until morning. The rest of that summer was so bizarre. My friends and I continued to hear similar noises on multiple occasions, but no one ever claimed to see anything out of the ordinary. A group of us were playing paintball out in a field when we were chased off by those noises, which we began calling the howly things. One night there was a motorcycle crash in town, and the howling was heard afterward. I even heard it again over a walkie-talkie which I used to communicate with some of my friends. They called me up to prove that they were hearing it too. The sound made my stomach turn. We did walk the area during the day and found a camp near the first spot where Garth and I heard the noises. It appeared to be a transient or a homeless camp. There were similar camps in the woods scattered throughout the area, but we'd never seen any such people out and about. Even stranger was the fact that the camps were always empty. That was the first and last summer where this happened. Even though almost 30 years have passed, I still get chills thinking about it. Please let me know what you think this might have been, Mr. X. Thanks, Eli. Greetings, my friends. As you might have noticed, hopefully not, but maybe you did, this is another video I had to record from a hotel room. As you probably know if you follow my Twitter at mr.xdreams, I'm on the road again for work. If you like cryptids, rejoice because, depending on when this video was released, you might have gotten 2 cryptid uploads in a row. It's been a while since I've had some good Dogman stories to share with you. I say that because both of these stories appear to carry some heavy elements of canine presence, with Charles's wolf-like creature sighting and Eli's howly things, as they called it. Once again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to hang out and listen to these stories with me, especially those of you who comment and spread love here on the channel. You have no idea how much it means to me when I see your love and support, not just for me, but for one another. The Dreamers are a very special collection of people, and I have gathered you all here because we all have a job to do. That job is to spread love and positivity into the world whenever possible. We may not always succeed, but it is the effort we're aiming for. So, about Charles's story, I thought it was very interesting that he saw a strange light in the woods before the large wolf creature began showing up around town. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I remember hearing another story where strange lights were seen before bizarre Dogman or Sasquatch-type creatures began turning up in a wooded area. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I remember hearing a story where strange lights were seen before bizarre creatures began turning up in a wooded area. I think perhaps if it was one of my stories, it might have been that laughing monster that was seen in the woods on a previous unknown cryptids video I did, but I'm sure I've heard of it before that as well. The idea of a portal or gateway opening up and releasing otherworldly creatures is simultaneously fascinating and terrifying to me. As for Eli's story, those neighborhood kids might have been in the presence of one or more dogmen, but I'm going to say something that I'm sure some of you have already been thinking. Another possibility. What if the creatures responsible for the howling were not dogmen, but rather werewolves? The suspicious element is when he mentioned the seemingly abandoned camps that appeared to be used by transients or homeless people and were spread throughout the woods in the town. But no actual transients were ever seen. Also interesting is the fact that the moon happened to be out on the first night where he heard that cacophony of noise. And another thing is that after that one summer, the phenomenon completely vanished. It ceased. I wonder if those transient camps disappeared as well, or even simply fell into complete abandonment and disrepair. Imagine for a moment that a tribe of wandering werewolves moved that way, from state to state, town to town, surviving by setting up camps and hunting at night, driving away any curious kids that came too close to their territory. Very interesting. If you have any theories about these two stories, leave them in the comments down below. As you know, I find these types of cryptids among the most fascinating. Let me know what you think. Anyway, I hope this message finds you well, my friends. Remember to do something to better yourself each and every day, be it in a big way or small. You can do it. I believe in you. Until next time, my friends, I'm Mr. X, and may your nights be full of dreams. Oh, and by the way, those camps must have been pretty musty with all those transient werewolves. Today's code word is musty. Use it in a comment down below so I can see you. Love you guys. Later.